Hey guys, it's your boy Sean, the Christian Imperialist. I'm doing the whole boomer thing where you're recording on the road, and so we're gonna have fun with this today. Why am I on the road? Well, as you may or may not know, Texas is being hit by a bunch of tornadoes, and in fact, my town did, and we've been holding in a family for a few days, and now that things are coming back to normal in that household, I'm going to go check on my other properties. So I'm kind of driving around right now, checking on my income properties. And so I've been thinking, so, okay, look, I got real estate. I'm doing that. I'm expanding my portfolio. I've kind of been worried about something. So real estate's this great thing where you can index your wealth towards inflation. That just basically means if you don't pay attention, like your dollar loses value every year. Let's say in normal times it was like 3%. Under Biden, it's ranging between 6 and 8%. That's official inflation numbers. If you actually go with real inflation, it's probably closer to 15% a year. People don't want to talk about that, but everyone really understands that, especially with your wallet book. Anyways, so inflation. Real estate helps you hedge against inflation. It's a real asset, and so it isn't really tied to the dollar amount. Because dollars are floating and they're losing value, but true values are staying the same. That's why people like gold and silver and hard assets. Anyways, so my play is with real estate. But I was thinking about this whole issue with, the replacement rates, immigration, basically, birth rates going on in America. And it's concerning me as someone who invests in real estate. And here's why. So before I get into it, I'm going to talk a little bit about Robert Kiyosaki. He kind of laughs at all these people who deal with paper money, whether you're in stocks and bonds and whatever, because all these financial advisors that you see, they say, oh, put your money in the S&P 500. Even Warren Buffett, you can't beat the S&P 500. And over this period of American expansionism post World War II, he's been right. And financial advisors, even like Dave Ramsey, put your money in a money market account. Like, you're putting it in stocks and bonds and everything and mutual funds in a time where basically you can't lose. It always goes up. It always goes up. And with the devaluation of the currency, nominally it's going up, and your values, continue to grow to some degree. And so putting money in something while it's growing, it's a good play. I can't argue against it. But none of these financial advisors ever really win when there's a recession or when there's a great depression, like under Obama. And yes, it was a depression. You had 5 consecutive quarters with loss. Like, that is the definition, the economic definition of a depression. And so, like, they never win during those times, but they say, oh, just ride it out and wait and wait and wait. And yeah, they're right. So if you wait long enough, the averages will continue to go up, and we're still in this upward trajectory. So, you're making money in good times. Let's just call it as it is. But what if the dollar falls apart? Well, that's why I like real estate, is that if the dollar falls apart, you're still on title. Whatever replaces it isn't going to change the judicial understanding, the law. I own this property because I have title. Makes sense. But then I got to thinking, okay, all my properties are tied to income producing. They all have to be cash flow positive. I'll even take cash flow even on some properties, because appreciation, the dollar continues to go down, the value of the property goes up. And so basically what I've been thinking, okay, all my properties are cash flow positive or even or whatever right now in good times. What if in, say, 10, 20, 30 years there isn't a population? Because real estate still operates on a supply and demand. Well, everything operates on supply and demand for value. And so what happens if demands decrease, if we're not importing all these third worlders and we're not having children, what's going to happen? And the funny thing is, we already know what happens. We see it in other countries, specifically like Japan. So you can see stories, you can go on TikTok, and you can see these Westerners who will they're able to buy these very large, well, relatively large, 2 or 3 bedroom abandoned homes in Japan for maybe $20,000-$30,000 because they're vacant, and I think there was more or less you had to update some things and get it up to code, and it's yours for super cheap. And a lot of you might be thinking, hey, $30,000 isn't very, very cheap. But in real estate it is, especially in Japan, because Japan is a very dense metropolitan island, and to get anything for that would be really nice, especially something that's mostly already built already. You're not having to build improvements from the ground up. You just have to do a little bit of renovation. And so, anyways, so you see that, and we already see it in places like Detroit. You can buy a house in Detroit for like $10,000. It's going to be in a terrible neighborhood. It may not have water or electrical, whatever. It's basically condemned, but we already know what real estate looks like in situations where there's no population. It becomes super, super cheap. So what I'm worried about for my properties is, okay, well, what if America declines and there isn't enough demand to fill my properties? What ends up happening? And it's making me wonder, should I pivot? Should I do anything like that? But then I remember, okay, well, supply and demand. You're buying when it's high, and you don't, because I'm post mill, I'm not going to sell when it gets low. Really what that just means is when demand drops, there's going to be a fire sale. You can buy up all of this stuff super cheap. Let's say it finally hits in, say, 20, 30 years, assuming the dollar's still going on or whatever. If you have cheap land, that's when you buy. Now, granted, right now we're in a situation where, you could say everything's expensive, everything's inflated. Sure, that's just the reality of our time. You can't just sit on the dollars forever. So you got to do something with it. So you might as well invest it in something that puts your name on title. So, anyways, I think the play in the future is not that, oh no, my real estate value has gone down. If you have a say $250,000 house, and you say in 30 years it's going to be worth, let's say it tanks, and with inflation, let's say it evens out to be like $100,000, and that would be a poor house in 30 years. And let's be honest, if you think $100,000 is a lot of money now, it's going to be pretty much meaningless in 30 years. And that's what a lot of people don't understand with debt. Like, they're getting mortgages, like, how am I going to pay it off? Don't pay off your mortgages early, even if the financial gurus are telling you that. I like Trump, but I don't think that he can get inflation under control, because he can't get spending under control, because Congress is not Trump. Congress, left and right, they have no intention on fixing our money. Even though, hey, Trump did go to the Libertarian Party and say, we need to fix our money and get it more stable, but that ain't going to happen. I don't believe it will. We continue to have a free-floating currency, and we're kind of screwed. So even if inflation does kind of reduce, I don't think it's going to get back to being a stable currency. And so so that's what I'm thinking. So right now, I'm going to continue to invest in properties that are cash flowing. My strategy is buy and hold until Christ comes, and pass it off to my children, pass it off to my church. That's what we do. We're going to hold on to it. We're going to sanctify it and use it for God's glory. But the question is, when do you ever cut bait? Because I've gotten some really, really nice offers on some properties. Like, I've had properties 3x just because of location, and they're like, well, why don't you sell it? And truthfully, if I were to sell it, I could absolutely take it and buy 4 or 5 more properties with it. and I've expanded my portfolio if I do that. But my whole point is to hold and to steward. And technically I could refinance if I like. Interest rates are coming down, and I like that. So that may be what I do instead of selling these prime locations. I just refinance it and cash out and take some of that money and buy some more properties. But I don't like the idea of selling a property. And I actually get some friction with some family members who are in house flipping. They're like, oh, you flip a house, you have cash, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, once you sell a property, you are no longer entitled to any value of that property. It's no longer yours. You can't rent it. You can't add to it. You can't do anything with it. You can't do any improvements. So I don't like selling property. And so it's better to monetize it in different ways and hold on to that cash flow for the future. That's an inheritance that you can give to your children, is the cash flow, not necessarily the property itself, which that is part of it too. But cash flow is king if you understand entrepreneurship and basically how to grow wealth. So anyways, hey, we're approaching 12 minutes. Just wanted to check in with you guys, let you know that everyone's safe, and hey, don't play with tornadoes. They're not fun. So everyone's safe and happy, and hope you'll have a good, what is it today, Tuesday? Yeah, all right. Later.